Hey guys, and welcome back to my channel. I appreciate you coming and checking out my second video. If you didn't see the first one, definitely check that out. It explains what we're going to be talking about on this channel, as well as a little bit about myself. So check that out. If you enjoy the content, definitely hit the like button, make sure to subscribe, and if you want to get notifications every time I post a video, hit the notification bell. Doing those three things helps get this content out to more people, and hopefully we can reach as many viewers as possible. This topic is a little bit of a touchy subject, but it's one that I know we needed to talk about early on in order to help people be as successful as possible. And that's our mindset. There's two basic trains of thought, and one is a creator mentality, and these are terms from a course called On Course. I don't remember right offhand who created that, but I can find it and let you know if you're interested. But one is the creator mindset. This is the take charge person, the person who says, I'm responsible for me, who gets things done, doesn't make excuses. And then you have the opposite side. You have the victim mindset. This is somebody who blames other people for their failings or their shortcomings. And anytime something goes wrong, it's never their fault. And this is not a healthy mindset to have. And we're going to get into why that is, as well as some simple things that we can do to try and get ourselves out of that mindset or keep ourselves from falling into it. And the issue is that we live in a culture and a society where we like to blame other people for what goes wrong. If you think about low skilled, uneducated workers, they want to blame immigrants for or foreign workers for the lack of employment or jobs. Again, this isn't true because most low income people aren't doing the jobs that immigrant or foreign workers do, anyways. So it's really just an excuse to blame somebody else. And if you just look at the statistics, the jobs that these people are doing aren't the jobs that the uneducated, low skilled workforce want to do, anyways, or are doing. If you look at employment trends over the last several decades, these are jobs that typically, if they weren't done by immigrant workers, would probably be done by a machine of some sort. Next example is poor people want to blame rich people for their problems. I'll be completely honest, I've met some wealthy people and they don't sit around thinking about poor people or how to make their lives miserable. In the middle class, I interact with a lot of people who do have money, and it's just not something that they do. The whole argument that it's the rich versus the poor, that's not the case. I'll do a whole nother video on that because that's a longer discussion than I want to spend on that right now. Then we have labor wants to blame management and vice versa. Managers say, oh, well, if the workforce would have done this differently, and the workers say, well, if management would just do this, this, and this, we would be better off. It doesn't do any good. And my last example is kids want to blame their parents. Yes, parents have some influence on what happens in your early life, but after you move out and you're on your own, like, you're responsible for the decisions and the choices that you make. You can't blame your parents forever. And I know that some people are mentally abused or they are mistreated, but at some point we have to take responsibility and we have to say enough is enough. I'm not going to allow my past to dictate my future. And I've seen so many examples of this as a high school inner city teacher. I've had students who had mental health issues and their parents didn't believe in mental health, but once they were 18, they were able to get the help that they needed and live successful lives. I've had students who didn't think that they had any value because their parents or their family had told them so for years and years and years. But the truth is, they do have value, they do have worth. And once they get out of that toxic environment, they can realize that potential and that value, and they really do grow on and do some great things. The truth is, we all are responsible for ourselves, regardless of where you came from, your past experiences, the traumas that you've endured. ultimately we decide if we're going to let that defeat us or if we're going to pick ourselves up again and we're going to keep moving forward, because we may never get to where it is we're trying to get to. You might want to be a multimillionaire. You might not get there. And that's just reality. But the truth is if you keep putting one foot in front of the other and making good choices and working and making sure that you're doing what you're supposed to do, you're going to end up way better off than you would have if you just gave up and said, forget it. I'm never going to be a multimillionaire. Why should I bother to try? And that's a terrible way to look at it. And if you think about it, if you spend the time that you normally would blaming other people or complaining about your situation, if you took that same amount of time and you spent that developing a skill or educating yourself or reading about a topic that you are interested in, you want to work in that field, you'd be able to be a lot more productive and maybe even fix some of those problems. Um, I encourage people to read self help books, mental health books, counseling. I encourage everybody to have a counselor, either a formal educated counselor or a friend that they can talk to about their problems. There's no shame in that, knowing that we all need help. I don't know why in this country we've made a stigma around mental health, uh, because at some point in our lives, we all have something to deal with. So make sure that you have somebody that you can go to and talk to that are going to help you reasonably think through this. You don't want an echo chamber, somebody who's just going to agree with you and say, yeah, your parents are terrible, they're ruining your life. That's not helpful. So make sure that you have somebody who's going to be honest with you. I have several people in my life, and my mentor and my wife are definitely two of them that say, you know what, Eugene, you're being a butthead. You're being a whiner. You need to suck it up. Yeah, the situation isn't great, but you need to make the best out of that situation. And they're absolutely right every time. And once I'm not as emotional about whatever's going on, I see the reason. I see the logic to what they're saying. And I figure out, okay, how do I make this situation better? So the reason that most people don't like this mindset of the victim versus the creator is because it puts the responsibility for your success 100% on you. Now, I'm not saying that you you're going to get everything that you want. We've already mentioned that. But you're going to be better off. You may not get promoted to assistant manager, but if you're still a shift lead, that's better than being a line worker or a crew member. So even if you don't get what you want, you're going to be better off if you have this creator mindset. Um, Maybe you didn't get the assistant manager job this time. Okay, what can I do differently to be more qualified in the future? What is it I don't have that the person who got the job did? And you know what? Once in a while, it is favoritism. It might happen. I've seen people get promoted that I was like, wow, didn't see that coming. But it happens. What you need to do for yourself is say, okay, that situation didn't work out. You don't give up. You try again. You make sure that you're even more qualified the next time you apply for that assistant manager job. Uh, because eventually you're going to be so qualified for that job, nobody's going to be able to tell you no, or you'll be able to look outside of your company and say, okay, this company is never going to promote me, but I'm so qualified that this company will. And sometimes you do have to leave. And no, we don't always want to do that, but sometimes it's necessary. A lot of us have had rough situations, and regardless of where you come from, you decide how you respond to that. So, just using my example, I was a poor white kid who grew up in the Rust Belt with one parent in prison and one parent who was absent a lot of my childhood. I could have gotten mad at the world and blamed society for my problems. I could have blamed the cops for arresting my dad. I could have been angry at my mom for not being around as much as I wanted to. And I could have done things like turn to drugs, alcohol, or other quick fixes to fix the hurt that I felt. But honestly, that wouldn't have solved my problems. And as I got older, it probably would have made them worse. I do have a sibling who did struggle with these things. He got into crime and alcohol and drugs, and he and I live very different lives right now. And it's just a result of how we responded to the situation. And I can't take credit for that, honestly. I had mentors, I had teachers, I had people who supported me and kept me on the straight and narrow and pushed me in the right direction. So if you don't have somebody like that, reach out, send me an email. We can talk about whatever's going on. That's why I created this channel. I want to be able to have a greater reach to help more than just the students I see in my classroom every day. So if you just need somebody to talk through a situation or some advice, that's what this channel is all about. So don't turn to those negative things. Uh, and I'm not going to say that I've made every decision perfectly. Through high school and college, I abused alcohol, and I was lucky that it didn't take over my life and that it didn't cause more problems than it could have. I know that in certain situations, I got really lucky. But I also made a lot of good choices in other aspects of my life. I made sure to go to school every day. I could have cut class. I could have said, it doesn't matter. School's not for me. It's not for people like me. You may not find it all relevant, and that's okay. Coming from a teacher, I'm saying that it's okay that you don't find it all relevant, but it is building a foundation for your future. You might not care about Shakespeare, but learning to write and communicate well is important no matter what job that you have. So show up to English class, do the readings. If nothing else, it makes you a better rounded individual. So when somebody interviews you and asks you, what's the last book that you read? You don't look at them like, I don't read books, because then they're looking like, okay, this person isn't about growth. They're not about improving themselves. They're not trying to be more than they are right now. Uh, One simple question in an interview tells them all that about you. And being somebody who teaches business and management and human resources, they look for those things. There's a reason they ask those things. They don't really care what book you read. They want to make sure that you are reading, you're learning something, you're developing, because most employers don't want to talk to or hire someone who just scrolls Snapchat all day or Facebook or Twitter or Instagram. They want to know that you're doing something. So instead of playing the blame game, I decided to put my head down. I studied, I worked hard to better myself. And now that I'm 32, I own my own home. It'll be paid off next year. Um, I have a great job. I've been there 7 years now. I love teaching. I have life insurance. I have long and short term investments. And my student loans are paid off, and I'm happily married. This year we'll be married 8 years. It's amazing how fast things will change for you. I'll be very honest, things didn't happen as fast as I wanted them to. When I graduated from college with my bachelor's degree, I didn't find a teaching job right away. So I ended up doing some odd jobs, and then I got an offer to be a graduate assistant at the same school I had graduated from. And so I became a graduate assistant for about 6 months, then offered a full time job at the university, and didn't end up having to pay for my master's degree. So even though I wasn't getting what I wanted to get a full time job, start working, earning money. I took the opportunity to become a graduate assistant, and it did lead to a full time job that paid much better than I was used to making. So you have to take the opportunities that are presented to you, even if you think, okay, this isn't what I signed up for. And one thing that most people won't tell you when they finally succeed or become successful is what they sacrificed. For me, I sacrificed a lot of fun in high school and college. I didn't party nearly as much as some of my friends did. Why? Because I knew that I had an 8 a.m. class that was already going to be hard to get to, especially in the wintertime, spring semester, when I had to drive a half hour to get there. So I had to be up by 6 o'clock, get on the road by 7, and make sure I could find a parking spot. That's not fun. A lot of people will tell you that college is the time of their life. That wasn't my experience, because as a first generation low income student, not only did I have to go to class, do my homework, I had to work sometimes 2 jobs to not only be able to provide for myself, but to make sure that I could get back and forth to school, make sure that I could afford my textbooks. Those things aren't things that middle class or upper middle class students have to worry about. So you need, as somebody who's becoming a life changer, you need to decide, okay, what's important to me? Am I going to be a victim and say, oh, well, I was born poor, I'm always going to be poor? Or are you going to make the sacrifices necessary to get where you want to go? Because at the end of the day, you're responsible for your own happiness. If you're in a relationship that makes you unhappy, get out of it. If you are at a job that you're not happy with, apply for a new one. If you're not qualified for the job you want, figure out how to get qualified for it. All of these things are about taking control of your own life. And if you don't step up and do it, nobody else is going to do it for you. Nobody else is going to be as invested in your life as you are. So what I want to do now is I want to take a look at a couple statements that are just victim versus creator statements. And I didn't create these, but I think they're a great example of just mindset differences. I'm going to read the victim statement, and I want you in your head to start thinking about, okay, how could I turn this into a statement where I'm in control of the situation? I have the responsibility, I have the power. So the first one is, I couldn't come to class because I had to go to the dentist for a checkup. Okay, that's a really lame excuse for not being able to show up to either regular school or to college if you're there, or even work. I tend to plan my appointments when I don't have to work. Why? Because I don't want to give up the sick time that I've earned, and I don't want to lose pay over that. So saying things like I can't, or I'll try, or it's not my fault, all of those things are victim mindset statements. So I want you to try and get, no, see, it's so natural for us to use. I want you to get into the mindset of not using those words. I can't, I'll try, it's not my fault. Try and cut those out of your vocabulary, because every day you get up and you decide what to do. Do you brush your teeth? Okay, that's a decision. You took power. That might help you not have to go to the dentist. So with this statement, I would say, to change that to a creator statement, you would say, I chose not to come to class today because my dental hygiene is more important to me. That's the creator. You made a choice. And it's okay if your dental hygiene is more important to you than maybe your high school English class or your high school math class or gym. It's okay if those are your priorities, but own it. Claim that those are your priorities. I might have the example of, I chose not to go to the gym today because I was reading a really good book. I enjoy reading. I'm not ashamed that that's my hobby or my pastime. Do I want to go spend half an hour on the treadmill? No. Do I need to be physically active to stay healthy and to do the things that I want to do? Yes. But I choose not to go walk or run on a treadmill for half an hour. I'll go walk my dog for half an hour, or I'll go on a bike ride. I choose to do things. I'm not forced to do things. All right, here's one. My boss makes me so angry. Okay, it's your boss. What are you going to do to try and de-escalate that situation? You might have a crappy boss. You might have a boss who just yells and degrades people. So what are you going to do to change the situation? Are you going to keep working there and to allow this person to keep making these statements to you? And I know not everybody has the option to switch jobs. If you do, great, switch jobs, find somewhere that appreciates you and treats you well. But if you don't, you have to take some power in this situation, and you have to say in the most respectful way possible, excuse me, but I really don't think it's appropriate for you to speak to me that way. Yes, you're my boss, but as a boss, it's inappropriate for you to talk to people that way. And that may not work. If that person isn't emotionally and mentally mature enough to be able to take that statement and say, you know what, you're right. I shouldn't. I'm having a bad day. Things are going on in my home life, and I'm taking it out on you. They might not be that healthy or that self-aware, but you have to at least say, I stood up for myself. I was respectful. I didn't start cussing that person out. I hear from my high school kids all the time, well, I hate my boss. I cussed them out or I told them off. Yeah, how'd that go for you? You may not have gotten fired because you're still at the lowest level on the totem pole. Let's say you work at McDonald's and you cuss out your manager. Sure, you might not get fired. But do you really think you're going to ever get a promotion or a good raise or even a reference? No, no, the person you just cussed out is never going to give you those things. So, again, it's about taking responsibility, it's about taking control of your situation and making sure that you are in the driver's seat. All right, let's do one more of these. All right, here's one I hear all the time. I couldn't get the assignment done because I was absent. That's not really an excuse. You came back to school. Did you ask for the makeup work? Did you reach out to a classmate and say, hey, what did we do yesterday? As an educator, I've never told a kid, no, you can't have the makeup work. Take responsibility, step up. The teacher may have had 5 kids absent yesterday. It's your responsibility to step up, ask for the work, say, hey, can I get a copy of the notes that you covered? And especially now that we've had this pandemic going on, a lot more schools are using technology. There might have been a video posted of the lecture, there might be a PowerPoint posted online. You can email the professor or the teacher. There are ways to make sure that you're being responsible and that you don't miss out, especially if you're in college. College is something that it confuses me how many people are willing to pay for it and not get an education. I had a student just this week say, I just cheat on my math homework. I get it from somebody else. First of all, you just told a teacher that you're cheating. But second, what about when you get into the workforce and you have your own job and they expect you to be able to do certain things? No, you may not need calculus to do your McDonald's job, but when I worked fast food in high school, sometimes the register would go down and you'd have to figure out how to make change. And I have students who can't do that. If you need to figure out the interest or the tax on the purchase you just made, if you can't do percentages, you can't know that they're charging you the right amount. So, yes, I understand you don't need everything in school, but you're responsible for knowing those things. And you may not think right now that it's a big deal that you don't know how to do algebra. Wait till you try to set up a budget or to buy a car or to buy a home or pay your rent. Like those things all require algebra. And I know that some people say, well, our school doesn't teach it that way. They may not, but they're teaching you the basic skills so that you know how to apply it later. Again, it's about taking responsibility. And if you don't understand why you're being asked to learn something, it's okay to ask. I'm perfectly okay if my students say, hey, Mr. Mock, when am I going to use this? And if you're a good teacher, I can explain to you when you're going to use it. Most teachers can. So, again, avoid the statements, I'll try, I can't, and it's not my fault. Try that just for one day. You'll notice your mindset starting to change. So, going back, you can either be a victim or you can be a creator, somebody who blames everybody else for their problems, or somebody who takes control of their own life and says, look, I'm going to be successful no matter what anybody else says. All right, guys, thanks again for watching. Make sure to hit the like button if you enjoyed this content. You can subscribe and hit the notification bell to make sure that you get notified every time I post a new video. If you have any questions, post those in the comments, and I'll get to that in the bonus video for the week. And definitely make sure to check out my 2 books on Amazon. We've got Gwen the Caterpillar for younger kids, and then for high schoolers and adults, we have Finding Your Own Path, a guide for changing your life. Uh, those help support this channel and make sure that I can keep providing this content to you. So thanks again, and see you next time.